This week the weather looks like it's going to be like this most of the time. It's freezing, there's ice, but it's bright and it's dry and it makes great gardening time. So I'm going to get a little bit done today. In fact, I've got a delivery, but there's plenty of other things to do as well. So, well, I just want to show you what happened to the edge of my plot over the weekend, particularly yesterday because there was huge gusts of wind. So I had this fantastic idea of putting manure into these composters, but of course I hadn't weighted them down in any way, so they've just moved. So I'm gonna have to get that organized this morning. I think what I'm going to do is start putting the new manure that's delivered today into these, and that will keep them in place. But I do want to find a bit of membrane before I do that. I'm thinking I'm going to borrow from Peter to pay for Paul, as they say, and use a bit of membrane that I've got here, possibly this, because, well, I'm working on this area and I think I can keep the grass level down. I don't think it's going to grow over the next month or so. So I think I'm going to borrow a bit of that, set it over there, get those composters in a line and start filling them up. It's a bit of a plan anyway. Well, I sometimes think that this is all a bit boring for people. But to be honest with you, when it comes to having an allotment, there are only so many things that you do, and it's more about the season and some variation when you decide to do something slightly differently. So all I can hope is that you guys still find all this interesting. And a number of you have said that you don't work your allotments in the winter and you take pleasure from just seeing how things are developing, and it helps with your own motivation. I hope that's the case. I certainly get motivated myself by watching other people's YouTube on subjects that I'm interested in. So, well, I hope that's true for you as well. Right, well, I'm going to uncover these and I will just top them off, because the game with these manure bins and composting is that they do shrink over time, and basically they're decomposing and we're getting more of the compost that we desire. So it does shrink, and therefore I keep topping it off, because what I have found, and I think I mentioned in my last video, is that if you want to keep the temperature high, keeping a good volume is pretty key. And the volume in here, which is a cubic meter, there or thereabouts. Thanks for pointing that out. I often call it a square meter, which of course isn't exactly correct. Right, let's just have a look at the temperature. Just want to make sure it's cooking nicely. And these were only a little while back down to 20 degrees. What have we got now? So this is at 34 degrees and rising, so that's 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and yeah, that's pretty nice. I think if we just keep them topped off, I can feel the warmth on top. If we keep them topped off, we'll be just fine. And I reckon I can get, a good foot on top of each of these, and probably 2 foot on this one because it never got fully filled up. Right, it's going to be fun today because I'm going to try and get this manure in the tops of those composters. I'll leave this fork up here. Right, off we go. Well, this is a bit of a moment of truth, just to see how practical it is to load these composters with horse manure, it won't matter if any falls over the edges, because this material is just good wherever it lands. Well, unfortunately the cold weather got to my battery, and well, that was the end of the recording, so I'll show you how I got on. Basically, I managed to fill all of these to a reasonable level. I'm going to get that lid out of that one, but what it's done is it's made them stable, so that's the main thing, because I didn't want them blowing over. That one's still a bit wobbly, and I've put a brick on the top, but there's plenty of room in them for another delivery or so. And then I emptied what was left in each barrow into this one, so I started those as well. So I reckon there's another delivery or two I can probably accommodate in all of this. And then I think I'll be ending up looking at my homemade compost bin, because, well, it's rotting down fast, but it's certainly not going to fill up, and I want to make sure that I'm using all the space I've got. I brought a load of, oh, very crispy underfoot, a load of peelings and things over from the house, and we've been doing a bit of a tidy up in the garden, so I've got plenty of more material to go in that bin. But today, well, I wimped out. I really sort of held on for the cold weather and the ice to diminish a bit, so that I could get onto the soil. And looking over here, because it's in the shade, it's still a bit hard, but I think I'm going to try and just take the top off of this area and see if I can start to get things a little bit level for my 2 IBC tanks. The temperatures in the manure bins, and that one is sitting at 32 degrees centigrade, which is fine. So things are warming up nicely under there. I put a lot of pavers on top, half pavers, just to make sure things don't blow off. You can see wherever there's shade, it's solidly icy, but I'm going to give it a try down there anyway. Right, get these peelings I've got. Well, this piece of carpet is solid. Get them into the bin. That's quite a lot of tree clippings, and well, the woody stuff like this, it will break down eventually, but it's not bad as a sort of supporting layer for some other things. This one's a bit heavier. Right, there we go. Give that a move around with a spade in a minute, and we'll be good to go. Right, well, first things first, as I start to level this area, I'm hoping that these tanks set on some raised blocks are going to be there for a very long time. But I just need to be careful with this step, because whilst I've put a plank in there, with the sheer weight of this, when it's a wet and warm day, it will certainly apply some pressure, and what I don't want to happen is for this edge to roll over and cause the edge to break down. So the plank's a good start, but I'm going to use some of these rebar stakes belted in front of that plank, just to give it additional stability. That's the plan. And then ultimately I might have some membrane going over it, but the structure of it needs to be supported. So I lost the head of my hammer, which was always very useful on the plot. So I think I'm going to probably replace the handle and, well, put it back together again if I can, because a sledgehammer is really not as useful. So anyway, I'm going to use this to bash them in, and if I need to get a rock or something just to get them really belt it down, I will. See how I can get on. Well, that's made that really stable. I've got 4 pieces of iron in there. It's not going anywhere now. And I rolled that over pretty darned easily, to be honest, so I was pleased with that. So it's rock hard here, and I really don't know whether I'm going to be able to move it, but I'm hoping that under this sort of underlay stuff that I've got here, it might be a little softer. I'll stick that down here for now, seeing I took up the membrane when I was doing the new compost bins, and things are stuck together because of the ice. I'll leave that in the middle, that brick. Yeah, and it's certainly not frozen under these, so I might have a chance of moving some of it. Right, there we go. I'm going to use my trusty Chillington hoe, and I'm going to be a bit careful here because, well, that's the top of the step. I don't mind being a little bit higher than that because the soil won't roll over the top of it, but I don't want to end up starting too deep down there. I'll move all this junk, give it a few chops and see how it looks. Just show you how hard this is. Yeah, it does come off. It comes off in a solid brick-like lump. Right, see what I can get done. Well, it wasn't too difficult once you got under the surface. Well, it's this end of this flat area that I'm hoping to put a shed on that slopes away quite a lot at the back end here. So any material I'm taking off there, I'm just going to put down here, and then hopefully it can help me just get the levels right when I get to the edge of this. Okay, now I'm going to stand back and have a good look at this because it's very deceiving when you're on top of it, what levels you've got. Let's have a look. Well, from back there, I think you can see it's a bit proud here, and it might mean that I have to take another inch or two just off the top to get it, well, reasonably low at this level because it's sliding away. So I think another go across, and maybe this time I'm going to start in this corner and come this way and load the barrow. Let's get underway. Okay, not bad. And final adjustments I can make with the breeze blocks. So I'm working on the basis that I'm going to put probably 2 at each corner because I want the height so that at the front under the tap I can put a watering can. That's the idea. So I think the next thing to do is to get the breeze blocks over here and just see how it lays out. Give me a good idea how things are going to set out, I think. Right, I'll get them over. Well, this really is just proof of concept, really. So I just want to see whether the height is going to be suitable for a watering can. And before I get these to the point where I'm happy that they're level and stable for the water tank, I will cover this piece of ground because, well, the weeds will just grow up and the bindweed will come up and circle around the cage of the tank. So I really am going to try and prevent that to the best of my ability. And Well, the true test will be putting that IBC back on top of those 4, seeing how it fits and seeing if I can get that can under. I might go off and look for someone to help me lift. I'll come back. Well, Adrian was here, but he's gone, so I'm not going to try and lift that on my own. There's plenty of time. What I am going to do is use these sort of coping stones just to lay out widths and just see whether I've got the space right underneath. Hopefully it's wide enough. I've got one spare half of a breeze block there. Might come in handy at some point. And one more of those. Right, so I can measure that now and just see whether I've got things about the right width. There we go. That's how they set out, which is just fine. Perfect, in fact. So we'll have the 2 IBCs here. I just need to get the right supports and just bring them up, make sure everything checks out properly. And then that's going to be their long-term home. And what's interesting is that once I move that one over and obviously bring that one in, the space that I'll have the other side I think is going to be ample for the potatoes that I want to set out in pots. And I also think there'll be a bit of space in that direction, whatever I choose as the dimension of the shed. Well, that's me done for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. And if you did, why not like and subscribe? And you get my updates every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 PM. Diolch yn fawr.